Thank you, John. So, submodels, we're going to talk about how to build them, some of the new things that have been put into xlights to make life a little easier. Some of them works with certain ways of doing things, but not all. So, we'll kind of discuss a little bit of that. Main thing is how to build them and what you expect to get out of them. So, we'll get started into that. I'm going to jump over to my xlights screen and kind of show you a little bit here. I have a few different models here to take a look at, but the first thing that I want to do is I want to show how to even bring in a model. There is both the import and the download function. Some of the downloads are there with different vendors, but if you have something on your own computer, you can just click import, drag in here, and then you can pick something that you want to bring in as long as you have an X model. This is the proper way to open an X model. You don't actually open them any other way. They are using something in here to do that. So I'm just going to click on anything here just to bring it in, just to show you how it's done. And again, you just import or download depending on the situation of the X model. So there's that. Submodels. So what is a submodel? A submodel is an area of interest within a model. And that area of interest can be built in a lot of different ways to get something different out of it. Submodels are pretty important for a model to make it do a lot, right? So if you just put an effect on the model, it will be limited, but you can also create submodels that will turn these effects into different ways of using them. So we're going to get into how that's done. If you click on one of your models, right now I'm clicking on this snowflake here, you come over to the model property window and you'll scroll down until you see submodels. If you click on here, click into three dots, that'll bring you into this dialog box. You can give yourself a little more space. If you click add, you're going to see your model pop up here, and you can kind of hover above the numbers here, and it gives you those numbers and it tells you where you're going to go. But the way you want to build a submodel, there is a purpose for a submodel, and the way you build them is actually important. One thing is called ordered node selection. So when you build something, you want to build it a certain direction, and you want to keep that same elements going around the same way all the way around something. In this case here, I personally like to start at the bottom and work my way around, or vice versa. But you can do it however you like. But what we'll do is we'll mess with this, and we'll show you some of the new features in xlights. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to pick this very first one. And you'll notice that the numbers pop up here, 95. I'm going to pick the next one, and 94. You see it's adding a dash here. I'll pick the next one, 93. What it's doing is it's actually adding these numbers as long as they are in order. But you'll also notice that it's going down, right? 95 to 93. That's because I am picking these in this order. If I were to just grab a bunch of these, you're going to see a bunch of numbers pop up, but they will be in numerical order. It doesn't mean that that's the way that I want them to be. So I'm just going to delete this, get this out of the way, and we'll start over. So I'm going to select this one. We're going to go in order. I want to work my way out. And I go to the end, and now I have a little short spoke. At that point, what I want to do is I want to add another row. And this is going to create a stacked submodel. So I'm going to grab these in the same order in which that we were doing this before. So this is the short one. This is going to go here, but I'm kind of running out. I don't have this end right here. So what I may want to do is I'm going to back up. I'm going to click back in here, and I'm going to hold my shift key, and I'm going to click and drag across that and get rid of it. Now I have these spokes arms are the exact same length, so they'll work the same way. So to actually grab one, you just click and drag across it, or to get rid of it, you hold the shift key and get rid of it. I'm going to add another row. I'm going to come around, and again, going in order, add a row, going in order, And you can see this can be a little tedious. Add a row. But it's important to get these right, because what happens with the effects can happen in the order in which we are creating these nodes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop right here, but I'm going to create one more row, and I am going to create it backwards. And you're going to see. Now I'm going to create one more row, and I am going to pick just out of order. I'm going to pick another row, and I'm just going to select some weird random stuff. Now, I'm just going to hit OK and save. And it's probably just going to be named submodels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the sequencer here. I've got a sequence open, but I'm not too concerned about that at the moment. Since I have my 24-inch E-flake here somewhere, let me find it. There it is. To get to your submodels while you're in the sequencer, you have to double click, and you'll see that the list is here, just like this. This submodel is the one we were just playing with. I'm going to put a single line effect on here, single strand effect, and I'm going to click on it, reset, see if I can get that to work, see what colors we got going on. Let me just hit stop, rewind, and click. There we go. Got it going. So take a look at what's going on here. I'm lining up these effects in this order, right? It's trying to work its way from the inside out. Let's just follow this pattern. This pattern right here is going outwards, just like I chose it in the ordered node selection. But the other ones that I chose that were out of order, this one's going to come from the outside and work its way in. You'll see it's going inward. But all the rest of them are the same way. They're going from the inside out. And then the other ones that I chose just kind of oddball, you see that they're getting picked all randomly, it seems. But this is according to how we have it ordered. Now, if I go here and I change the transformation, let's say I rotate it 90 degrees, you'll see it's going to pick each one of those rows that I created in the order in which I created them. I'll go back and show that in just a second. But this is the transformation. So I want to kind of give you an idea of what that's doing. Go back to the layout, take a look at the submodel again. Let's look at this submodel in particular. This is the bottom row. This is the top row, but you'll notice that the bottom, and this is an order in which things are going. In normal circumstances, the single line, the single strand will go across a prop left to right. But on a submodel, it's going to go across left to right through these numbers. So the first place it's going to hit is this first number right here. There's 127, 123, 49, 115, and it's just going to run the gambit all the way out to the end. And when you do that, what I would expect it to do is follow these ordered nodes in which that I created them. Now, when you do a transformation, what that does is that turns it, and now the effect is going to go from the bottom, then here, 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 and so forth, however many lines you have created. So what we would expect is this row, which is this one, to be lit up first, then this one, then this one, and this one, and so forth. Now, if you transform it the opposite 90 degrees, then we'll get this one being the first one, this one being the second one, third, fourth, so forth. And what that does is that allows you to create an effect in two different directions as long as you create it correctly. I'm going to delete this model right now, and then I'm going to show you the one that was created earlier. This one here, you'll notice I'm going to go to the bottom, and this is the very first one that it would hit if I turn the transformation. The next one is going to be this one. The next one will be this one, and so forth. The reason why that I have them in a clockwise pattern. I personally go from bottom and around in a clockwise pattern, unless the submodel determines that I need it some other way. That could be something like a spinner here, like I have the spiral counterclockwise, right? So obviously I don't want to go clockwise on a counterclockwise prop. So I have it going around the opposite direction. Clockwise, of course, is going to go clockwise. Look back to the spinner. You'll notice that the bottom, and then as I go. So when you create things, you want to create a pattern that is normal through the entire stack, we'll call that. And again, a single strand effect is going to go across here, and it's going to hit these first. Unless I do the transformation, it's going to run out this line. Each one of these are the same length, so they'll run out the same amount of time. That's pretty easy. Now, one thing I'm going to show you right now, let's go ahead and add another. I'm going to show you some of the new things that was added. I'm going to create a single spoke, and I am going to do it in a ordered node. And I'm only going to do 4 here just because. If I right click right here, we'll have the option to symmetricize rotational. It asked me how many that I wanted to do. I know that I have 12 here. So I'm going to tell it 12. Hit OK. And what you'll see is it just created all those for me. So I only had to do 1. Instead of going around and doing all of these, I only had to do 1 and then add that. I'm going to delete this entire model. We're going to do this again, but I'm going to show you something else that it will do. I'm going to add, and I'm going to skip a row 1 right here. I'm just going to do this one and this one. And I'm going to do this one, this one, this one, and this one. We'll get all of these. I'm going to do the same thing. But this is not going to work properly, but I am going to just show you what I'm wanting to get out of here. I want to make that 6, hit OK. And now we have 6 of the patterns. We got some odd stuff going on here because I skipped one, but the whole point of this exercise here is I want to show you that we can create these rows to be the exact same length. And the way you do that is that I'm looking for that uniform row length right here. So if you have some odd stuff going on and you want to create the same length on them, then all you have to do is create a uniform row length. This one is not going to do that, but if I had something going on that did, here, let me try that again, see if I can get this to work correctly. Add, I'm going to just do this one really quick. Right click, symmetricize. Hit OK. Now I have them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out 19. Well, excuse me. Now, obviously, I'm taking out some of these, so the rows are going to be odd shaped. And if I were to right click this and make this, let's see, uniform row length, what it's going to do is it should add some commas to this. It doesn't seem to be working at the moment for this setup. I may have something else done wrong. But usually what will happen is it will add some commas in there and take up some spaces. And that kind of brings me to my next point. If you want to take up space, there is ways to do that. I want to kind of show you on another model that. Let me cancel this. Here's an outline of a tombstone. And what I've got going on here is a little different. I just want things to work a certain way. So to do that, I'm going to use some spacers here. Here's the arch, and these are the same numbers of pixels through here as it is on the outside. So you would expect everything to work a certain way. But when you get to the outline, there is a different number of pixels. And what I've got going on, if you'll notice right here, I've got an exclamation points here. So exclamation points, extra commas, zeros, those will take up some space. And I want to explain what's going on here. So if I put a single line effect on here, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to hit the 1 and the 100. So I'm going to show you the 1 and the 100. The next one it's going to hit in the order will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one is going to go 100, 99, 98, 97, 96, and then it's going to hit this one where it says 95. Now, if I were to do the math and count it over, what that does is it's going to stop me right here because I have these extra exclamation points. It's going to allow this one to run 2 more times. 1, 2. And now it's lined back up, and the next ones that it will do will be these 2. So it's going to align it for me. Instead, if I hadn't done that, what would happen is it would run through here, and then this side would outrun this side, and it wouldn't be symmetrical, and it wouldn't look as good. So creating some spacers here are allowing these things to catch up. I'm going to give you another example of that. Take a look at the spiral X. Okay, let's go into the submodels again. I have a double spiral. It's done on 2 rows, and it starts right here on 74 and 73, and it was the gambit all the way out to the top. And what I have is a full rotational spiral all the way up. But there are some times that I want just the front, and I want it to be timed with the back just in case that I want the effects to go across them at the same time. And the way you do that, you take a look at, I have double front spiral, just the front. So it doesn't include anything that should be on the back, but I have zeros here to take up those space holders. And I'm just going to count these out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you'll see the very first set is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And what that will do is it will allow the effect to run through the zeros at the same time that the main spiral will be running through as well. So you can put 2 different colors on it, have them run at exactly the same time. And the whole point of that is to get a little bit different effects. And sometimes models or submodels are good on their own, but sometimes you want 2 different models to work together. And the way you would do that is by creating some of these things that do that. I'm going to show you another case that I'm using that on. And that is here on this new NSR model arch. What I have is this back wrap, and I also have the front wrap. And it just emulates something wrapping around this model. And the way I created it is the front wrap. You'll notice that it has these spaces here. That's towards the end, but remember, we're going to start at the bottom because that's the way our model is going to start running. This is this whole line right here. And then I go to the second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row, sixth row, and then space, 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 and then I get to this one here. And what this is emulating is the time that it takes to go around the back side and reach this side again. Now I'm going to go back to the back wrap side, and you'll notice just the opposite. We have a space, 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 and then we get to this one. And this times this model with the other model so that if I put an effect on both of them at the same time, then I will have something that appears like it's going around the front and then to the back side, around the front to the back side, and it will do this through the entire submodel. And I changed the color slightly so that it looks like it's something from behind. And that gives you an appearance more of a 3D effect. That's what I was going for. Now, to make this work properly, you also have to consider the order here, right? This is your render order. When xlights looks at submodels, each submodel is its own model as far as it's concerned. It's going to render your main model and however many layers or rows that you have on it, and then it's going to move to the next submodel in there, which in this case is this back wrap. Then it will move to the spiral, right? So the spiral is built, you'll see some space holders here. That's to keep everything in time. But you'll see that it's just running around this way. That's the counterclockwise, the clockwise in the opposite direction. Then it goes to the spokes, and then the outline, and then the front wrap. Why I want the front wrap all the way down here. And as a matter of fact, these strand arches, they should be up above that. So the easiest thing to do, click and drag, and that swaps the spots for you. So now I have the front wrap in the very bottom. That goes into another thing. When you're creating submodels, you want to have your submodels built on the top to be the biggest ones and then down to the smallest ones. Because if you have a submodel that is covering up other submodels, you're really going to lose them. So you want to create your submodels in the order in which that if you have layers of different things going on, then you actually see them. So what I'm getting here is I put something on that back wrap and then have something on the front wrap, and then I can have something going in between them. And what that will do is it'll look like something is actually threading in between these, going back and forth. So that's the order here. So this is your render order. That is something to pay attention to. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more here in just a second with the spiral X. I'm sorry, the showstopper spinner. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this one has a lot of submodels. And a lot of these are use case scenarios for different people. And I'm going to liken it to a menu. If you don't want it, don't take it. Get rid of it, because it does take up a lot of room. The ones that you use and you will be using, keep them and simplify this as much as you want to. When I go up here, you see this says whole spinner. The reason Michael done these this way is he broke this apart and he's got them numbered so that they stay in order when you're mapping to them. You'll notice this is middle and then center. We've got some different parts here. And the reason why he broke it apart in this order, so we have pieces that go all the way to the outside. And then if we go down here, we have smaller ones, the different parts, so that they won't actually cover up the other pieces. So you can put layers and layers and layers as you go down, you'll get more and more things building up on this so that you're not just having one effect because it is covered by the entire thing. So this is a render order, and it's actually very important to keep these in the direction that they need to be without covering stuff up. Are there any questions so far? I'm fixing to move into another part of this.
Jackie, when you had the blank and you had the asterisks, that was one for each of the pixel in that row that you wanted to blank, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. So what happens is that you're going to create a something that goes through and you're filling in a gap. The way, if you'll notice, like in this one in particular, in this one right here, we have some different spacing on these. They wouldn't look quite right if you had them go out, at the same time, but it does do a certain effect. There are some effects to where having the alternating links is a good thing, but sometimes that's not what you want. So you would actually put in a spacer in between, just wherever it belongs. I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you a trick that can help, and then we're going to talk about a couple of other things. It's there. So the zeros are the actual spacers. An extra comma is a spacer. So it'd be two commas in a row. One comma is just a split between, one pixel to the next. But if you have two, it will actually create a spacer. So exclamation points, zeros, things that are not actually, pixel numbers.
So on the spiral arches where you had the zeros, and you're calculating how the zeros are going to help the effect, do the zeros consider time? Do you have to consider
exactly. That is a time use, right? So what it does is, like, if I go into here, the effect is going to go across here, and I'll go ahead and go into this part so this will make a little more sense. The effect is going to go here, then here, then here. These are frames. right? So first frame, second frame, third, depending on how slow you go, but you can keep going. These right here is just spacers, right? I could probably just put one here and it would have been just fine. But I just put the same number of commas as there are pixels in each one of these sections, just to make it, evenly spaced. I want it to be evenly spaced up and down, left and right, and all that other thing. So what I want you to picture, this is the model, right? It's got a curved shape to it, and that's what you would expect as per preview, right? But the submodel does not have a shape, not unless you do a per preview. It does not have a shape. Its shape is a square. It is a line graph, just like what you're seeing right here. If I were to create a graph and have, sections here and filled it in with each individual pixel, you would see it's creating a square. Now that shape of that square, it depends on how long it is, how many rows you have, and that sort of thing. And I'm going to show you where you can actually see that. I'm going to go back to the sequencer, go to view, windows. Matter of fact, it's already up, but I'm going to show it to you. The effect assist. See, this effect assist, which is right here, is this. Look at the shape right here. So right now we're on submodel 1 for this one, but I'm going to go back to that. Let's see if I can find my NSR arches. They're going to be below this. Here we go. So I'm going to put just an on effect here for the front wrap. I'm going to just hit the O. And you'll see that it's just filling it in. That's all it's doing. It's not, but look at the shape of this buffer, this effect assist. If I were to go in and let you look at each one of those rows that we created in there, you'll notice that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry, 5. I can't count. So I have 5 up, and how many rows do I have over? I'm not going to count it. I'm just going to go take a look. I have 60. That's how many it was over. So 5 up, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. That is 5 over on each one of these, and it's 60 up. That's the shape of that buffer. So this buffer right here is this direction like this. So I'm just going to put a single strand effect and let you watch it. It's going to go across in a weird pattern. Let me get that out because that's a little fast. So watch it as it goes. You see the timing that it takes for it to get around to the back side? All right. So it's taking up space and time by creating those in there. And that's the front wrap. I'm going to put another one on the back wrap. Let me just drag that over there. Control C, put one here, Control V. And I'm just going to line these up. I'm going to change the color of this one here. And to give it a little better, I'm going to make that persistent. I'm also going to make this one persistent. And obviously my colors are kind of running in with the other, but you see what it's doing is tying together so that you can actually, can you guys see that color, or is that a bad color?
No,
It's a bad color.
All right, so let's do this. Maybe that one will be better. And let's change this one to green. We're going to try to get some wild color just so you can see them. You see how the timing is working here. This is one use case scenario of doing that. There's lots of other reasons to do it. Let me go back over here. I'm going to show you this one here in particular. Submodels. So look at this skewed stripe. Notice my zeros and 0. Those are spacers as well, but I'm going to get down to the bottom. And then you have 0, 0, 0, 0. Why is that? That's because my bottom row here is missing pixels, the count here. I want to make this evenly in the middle. So if I'm creating a graph and I'm plugging in these pixels, well, I want them to line up according to the way they are actually here. If I didn't have these here, then an effect that was coming across from this side and going over here would hit this at the same time and it would run out too quick. I want it to be timed together, so that's what those are for. Go into my angled here. Look at what I have right here. I've got these spacers. Why do I even need these spacers? So I'm going to start right here, and you'll see that I have these number of pixels that go across. And I go to the next one, and I go to the next one. And then at this next point right here, I lose a pixel. So I want that pixel to be maintained. So I do it with that timing maintained. I do it with a spacer. And then there's the same number of pixels missing in this one. And then all of a sudden I'm going to drop 2. So I'm going to go here. It drops 2. Then I drop 3, drop 4, drop 5, drop 6, drop 7, 8, 9, and 10. And this allows me to keep the same timing as an effect goes across, instead of it coming through and then kind of getting warped out of whack there without knowing that you may not even know what's going on or why. But that's some of the things that can happen. One thing that I want to show you is these effects right here. Take a look at them. These are icons, and they're very similar to the way the actual effects look. In some cases, that's not always true, but take a look at this single strand. This single strand goes from left to right. So if I click on here, you'll see the effect left to right. This is default. I can change that. I can also change the buffer here. I can rotate it, and it will change the direction. But for default purposes, it's left to right. Look at the fire effect. I'm just going to drop it in for now and let you look. The fire effect works from the bottom up, right? It works from that way when you look at it. I mean, that's how you would expect a fire to work, going from the bottom to the top. And the way it's going across these effects here is that the bottom row that it sees is actually doing it. Now, let me put this on a different one. We'll click in the middle of it, hit the up arrow until it gets onto the main model. Delete this out of the way. Click back on here. And you see that the effect is actually working from the bottom and working its way up. If I grow it some, you'll see that it takes up more of the arch. So the direction in which these effects work do some pretty good tricks for you in a submodel. So you don't always have to have them happen just like this. If I wanted to, I could put this on, let's say, my strand arches. And what that is, the strand arches is, this arch here, then this one, then this one. And you'll see that the most of the brightest part is on the bottom section of those arches, and it just works its way outwards. So it can do a lot of really cool things. I want to get to something different to kind of show you how that works. So this is the pumpkin, the EFL pumpkin. I'm going to go into the submodels and show you a couple things here. Here's an outline as what you would expect. Some things has changed since I created this. So there's better ways, but I'm just going to show you this anyway. I have a bottom row that's empty. I can just delete that if I wanted to. There's no need in having it. But I wanted to create an effect to where it looked like everything was going upwards, right? And that's what I'm doing here. I just created something that would have a little depth to it. The way I would recommend doing that now is just selecting all the ones that you want, coming up here, dropping this down and say keep XY. If all you want this to do is stay on and have depth to it, and you don't need a direction, then keep XY is a great way to go. So you could just create everything like you want it to, keep XY and you're done. Default, it works great for a lot of things. Now, I've created a couple other specialized effects here. Here's the jack-o'-lantern fire effect. Here's the face effect. Here is a fire effect. And then the stem, which is this top portion, and then the tongue. I'm going to start on the tongue. Look at the bottom here. You can see this is the bottom. This is, you know, working my way in. So if I put a single strand effect and turn it, put that single strand or even a bars effect, it will make that tongue look like he's sticking it out. So this is what it's designed to do, is make it look like, if I wanted to just turn on, I could create one row and do a keep XY and that'd be fine. But I wanted it to look like it's moving. So I'm creating these rows here, these stacked layers to give it that appearance. And what I would end up doing is rotating my transformation probably counterclockwise 90 degrees to get it to do that effect. Now, what you also notice is that my naming convention here. My naming convention is telling me exactly what I want to put on here. It's just what works for me. If you're going to create an effect that's specific to a certain effect or a submodel that's specific to a certain effect, name it that to remind you what it is. In this case here, I have the fire effect and I also have a face effect. As far as I know, I'm the only one that's doing the face effect on a submodel. And this one here was done in a certain way that I can't really go into, but there's some easier ways to do it. If a person really wants to know, I'd be more than willing to help you on that. The fire effect, specifically designed just for the fire effect to put on there. I want to show you what it's going to do when I get there. The stem and the tongue. You see the stem is also in layers. I could have just as easily done it on one row and done XY. So let me show you a little bit about these effects, what they do, these submodels. Let's see, where are you at? So here's my pumpkin. I've got a couple things going on. Matter of fact, I'm just going to delete them all. And I'm going to put the fire effect. Imagine that. Everything is in alphabetical order up here, except for the off and on. Put the fire effect on here. And what you're seeing is the way I created that submodel. The bottom line is this center section right here inside the mouth to appear like a candle or a light inside of his mouth. And if I increase the height, you'll see that it works its way from the center out. So here's the center. I'm going to work it a little bit bigger as I go, and I'm working my way outwards. And that is simply creating a stationary jack-o'-lantern. And that's what that's for. Just so it can just sit over there and look cool. But let's take this a little bit further. Let's make it talk while it's doing that. So here is the fire effect on the jack-o'-lantern fire effect, right? This is what it's doing. It's actually giving me a fire effect. I'm going to go back into the layout in just a minute and show you how this is created so that you can kind of get an idea. But to work with this is another case to where you're using two submodels to get one thing out of it. I'm going to put the face effect, guess where? On the face effect. And I have specialized faces created for these, and they're named, guess what? Jack-o'-lantern, right? So it matches these right here. I'm going to do the angry one. And you notice it cleared up all the extra pixels that were in there. Those extra pixels are not necessary to create, mouth movements. If I wanted to make an E or an L or an MVP or those sort of things. So this is what I'm doing with this. Now, to get this effect, what I'm creating, I want you to notice that, matter of fact, let me get this up here. We're a little bit high. Yeah, this will be fine. You'll notice that I have a brighter area right in the middle. The top of the eyes are brighter than a lot of the other areas. I'll drop it down until you can just barely see that. And in my mind, what I'm doing is creating an area that has a central light source right? So this would be the brightest area right here, but it would also be shining upwards and it would reflect off the top of the eyes. And it would probably, you know, this is just for more character. All right. So the way I done that, let's go back in here, go to the submodels. And I'm going to go to the fire effect. Let's look at the bottom. And as you can imagine, the very center here is the brightest part of the fire effect. And then I'll slowly work my way outwards. And then there's going to be a point in time to where I skip down and get some other stuff brighter. Take a look right here. Back up a little bit. You see this one here are starting to light up too, because I want it to light up earlier than the rest of the stuff around it. But we're still growing. And as we grow, I'll get to a certain point. These tops of the eyes, I have a lot of different shapes, so I included all of them in this. And the same thing as the top of the nose opening. I wanted that to light up brighter than the other areas around it. So I'm creating a shading path by doing this. And I'll keep going, and you'll notice that we're still expanding. We're still growing outwards. And that's creating a directional pattern here. Go back here and you'll kind of notice, you'll see the top of the nose is brighter, but these are brighter, and then this area right here is also brighter. And that is due to the shape of the actual buffer of the submodel. And here it is right here. This is the shape of the submodel right here. Now watch what happens. I'm just going to play around and it's going to kind of screw things up, but I'm going to change the transformation. The main thing I want you to see is the shape of this. It's going to stay the same shape, but it's just going to turn. There we go. So take a look right here. You see how it turned, which I can't really get you into that to see it. There we go. It didn't change the shape, it just changed the direction. So if I was using a fire effect, then I would expect this section right here to be the most lit part and work its way up. And I'm going to increase that height, and you can kind of see what we're doing. You'll notice that the outline right here is probably this bottom section, but let's change this the other way. And this, you'll notice it kind of works its way in. All we're doing is rotating this buffer, and that is the direction of those pixels that we have allocated in the submodels. Get this back to none so that it's the way we wanted it to work. Any questions so far?
Can you elaborate for a newbie here just a little bit of the effect assist, what we're really looking at?
So the effect assist, right? This is not the only purpose of the effect assist, but for right now, this is really all I want to go over. But it's the shape of your buffer, right? So let's picture this, right? This is your single strand. It goes left to right. That left to right is going to go from this section over here. That's really what it's telling us at this moment. There are some effects that you can actually put on that you can actually draw. So you see the effect assist here? You can actually draw and do some different things. I'm not going to get into that because I'm definitely no expert on that, but there's very few of them that do it. For the most part, it can show you the shape of your buffer. But watch what happens here if I change this to a per preview. It's not necessarily going to change the numbers, but what it's going to do per preview is it's going to make a grid pattern around this prop. And that is going to be the shape of this buffer. So here is per preview. Now look at the shape of this buffer. Now you're seeing that what it's doing is it's filling it in. Every one of these is probably going to be part of the submodel anyway. So it's taking in everything. But it's also taking in a lot of dark areas that are not part of the actual model. Now, if I go back to default, you'll see it's the shape of my submodel buffer that I created. If I go to single line, you probably would expect this to be what? One line. And it's going to be the length of the actual submodel. If I could, I could zoom in and you'd probably see the entire, every single pixel, but it's all in one line. That's what you would expect. And a single strand effect is going to go from here straight over there. And that's how it's going to react. If I turn the buffer, so let's do that. Watch what happens. I'm just going to give you this example. I'm going to put a single strand effect, which goes from left to right. Right? Change this to single line. Now watch what happens. Let me make sure persistent is off. Okay. It's just following the pattern that I have laid out row by row. All right. If I change the chase size down to, let's say 5, it'll give you a little bit different. Now, if I were to change the transformation 90 degrees, it's going to rotate this right here up and down, but the effect's still going to go left to right. That means it will hit every single pixel at the exact same time.
So is the effect assist kind of a mapping tool? Is that a
Sort of? It sort of is, but for the most part, you don't need it. It's just there for a visual assistant here. There are cases where you can utilize it for actual, effect creation, but in this case here, it just tells you what you're doing. So knowing that does that is really the key, because when you're putting effects on these, that's going to tell you what you're doing. If I put a bar, right, put a bar on here, you're going to see that same buffer, right? I'm going to put a rotating a little bit, add some colors here because it is the bar effect. I'm going to put that. Now it's following this pattern. It's just, following the pattern that I created. If I were to move this up to the main model, you'll see it's just going straight across, and it's going, it's supposed to be up, but let's do it this way. None. There we go. It's going up because I have no transformation and I have the direction going up. If I were to put it single line, watch this buffer. It's going to go to the single line. And now we have this going across, and bars is going what? Up. So it's hitting it at the same time. Eventually, it's going to run through all these colors. Take black off of there. And we'll shorten it so it's a little faster. Put some more colors. And it's going to go across these just like that. Now, if I rotate that buffer, you're seeing the bars effect go through the gambit of the actual main model, but it's doing the wiring pattern and nothing else. And what we want it to do, if we want to do a different pattern other than the wiring pattern, then we create a submodel and do it just on the outline. I hope that helps a little bit. Anyway, we are running a little bit further past time, but I want to show you a couple more things. Some of the new items that are here that might help you in your submodel creation. Matter of fact, just real quick, I'm going to show you this one. This is just for good fun. Look at the arch here. All right, this is your arch. Everybody likes to have a great arch. Notice what I've got right here. Can anybody guess why I would have all those spacers in between here? If I have a single strand going left to right, it hits 266. This is 266. It's going to run out according to this right here, all the way to 294, which is, where are you at? There it is, 294. So after 294, if the timing is right, what will happen is 288, 300, 293, and 295 will pick up. Well, here they are. So we get a single strand going across here, runs out, and then it starts to hit these and runs out the rest of the way. So you get a little bit of a spatter. And that's the great arch going on there. So with this this here, I'm going to create a new submodel for it real quick and show you one of the new features that you may or may not know of. I'm going to go to the double spiral. This is all of this right here. I'm going to copy it, and it's now called double spiral 1, and it lands at the bottom. I'm just going to hit right here. Now, I don't want this same model, and what I want to do is I want to actually get rid of these out of the back. If I just hold my shift key and drag across here, what you're going to see is we're only going to be able to work on one line at a time. And I'm just going to keep getting rid of some stuff here. And you'll notice that when I do this, now I'm pretending as if I'm getting rid of just the back portions of this here. Now, what you'll notice after a little bit of me doing this is that I'm actually shrinking this here, the length of it. And now the effects will not go across here at the same time as the other one. And I want these to be timed perfectly. So the best way to do that, let me just delete this and create that one again. We're going to copy it. The new feature, however, and again, it's still going to be on one line. If I hold the control and the shift, I can drag across these, and I'm going to do that and just keep doing it until you see what's going on right here. It's doing it for me. It's actually creating the spacers and keeping everything in time. That is control and shift. So if I have to remove stuff, but I still want the timing, that is what that's for. And you'll notice that it's filling it in at the proper spot. So when I created the spiral front, I had to go in and count these sections and put them in the right spot. But the new feature will allow you just to go through and delete those sections. And again, it's a 0, an extra comma, exclamation point, any of those will work. Any questions so far? Clear as mud. So there's a couple things that were also added as well. Let me get off of here. Right click, split. There was another option. It may have been taken out. It was not added. There was yeah, okay. So if I highlight a bunch of these all at once, I can right click and I can join these. And join as a single strand, that's new. It's just what you would think it would be. It just puts them all in order, ball 1, ball 2, 3, 4, 5, and it would have them in the order in which you do there. If I join them, what it's going to create is a stacked submodel, ball 1, 2, 3, all on their own row. And so I'm going to create that. I'm going to hit join, and you'll notice that what it done, it created another submodel down here. I'd rename it. And this is what you would expect. Probably, I think that's ball 12. No, that's ball 1. Okay. So there's ball 1. And then in the submodel, this is ball 1, 2. It just put them in the order in which this is put in. If I wanted to change that, I come over here and I can reverse the rows. And now ball 12 is on the bottom and ball 1 is on the top. These buttons right here can do a lot for you as far as changing things up, changing the pattern, changing the direction. If you want individual rows, individual stuff, come to this right here. This will do that for you. If you want to move the entire conglomeration, these right here will do that for you. Now, if I wanted to, I can split now. And I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I am. I'm just going to do it. So what it does is it takes the name, it keeps it in there, and then it puts each individual one. Notice that I now have ball 1. It keeps the orders, and 2, 3, which is the same as this right here. But I obviously don't need these. Matter of fact, I'll get rid of a lot of this right now. Delete.
Jackie, can you speak to getting rid of the individual submodels once you create a join or stack
Yes.
submodel.
Yes, well, that's a good point. I want to bring this up, and I want to go back. This is the last thing that I'll touch on since we
Okay.
are running into overtime. And it's a very good point because there's a little bit of I don't want to say contrition, but there is a little bit of talk of how you're supposed to do things, and there is purposes for creating groups, and there are purposes to have stacked submodels. When you can do a stacked submodels, I think it's a win. But there's not always that case that you can do that. So let's take a look at this one because this one does have so many different submodels in it. Let's take a look at what happens. So here's your cascading arches. Look at one. Yeah, so you got this pixel right here, 346. You can find that one. Let's see, it'll probably be in this one. Yeah, you can also find 346 in this one right here. What xlights is going to do is going to treat this as you'll especially see it in a check sequence as overlapping nodes or double nodes. But what's going to happen is xlights is going to give the first model that has this, it's going to give it the light. The second one, it's not going to do anything. It's going to skip it. It's not going to it's still going to be a spacer as far as time goes, but it's not going to get lit up. And what it creates is small gaps. And what I'm going to say is this: how big of a gap do you have to have before it matters? Okay, how big of a gap creates a problem? Is it 1 pixel in a submodel that goes out as it rotates? Is that an issue? For most people, it's not. And I guarantee you that most of the people out in your audience is not going to see it either. They're not going to care. But us being our own worst enemies here, we're going to criticize ourselves and say, I got a pixel out. This is how am I going to fix it? Well, the way that you do that, okay, cascading arches, I'm going to drop down here and see, you'll see that they're broke out individually. Now you can create a group and put each one of these in the group, and some of your render styles will actually create that for you and not lose that pixel out. So here's what you trade off. You're going to have a whole big old list of groups that are just going to be specifically for these submodels. So you're going to have a whole bunch of stuff in your layout, in your sequence that's going to be there. The other option is to leave them stacked and just deal with what you're having missing, which is generally not going to be that bad for most cases. But you're going to have a whole bunch of these in here. The reason why that Michael created all of these was not so that you have them, it's so that you have an option. So do you want groups or do you want stacked submodels that may have skips? When do you need it? Let's take a look at a couple of submodels here that you may not need it. So here's spinner, right out. None of these alter, that they go over each other. So each one of these are individually. They will not touch each other. There's no duplicate nodes. There's nothing there. You don't need to put this into a group. You're creating another group for yourself. But the question remains, do you prefer a lot of groups or do you prefer a lot of submodels? Which is best for you? When you get ready, you can just come in and say, okay, I want groups. Well, then put these in a group, right? Look at the spider. You see all these center ones right here? And I go to the next one. Look at all them. If every one of those were skips, then that would look terrible. This is where a group comes in handy, right? You're going to have all this into a group and you can have it jump from one to the other. Or you can sequence each individual one alternatingly to where it would just keep going around in a pattern. But most people don't want to do that. Cascading arches, right? You put that in a group, you're going to save a few pixels through there. Circles, same way, right? There are going to be some duplicate nodes in these. So which one do you want? Do you want these or do you want these? Which one is your cup of tea? That's going to be the biggest answer. A lot of your sequencers today is using groups, but those group effects can go straight over to a stacked submodel. You may have to change the render style. So it's just up to you. It's up to your sequencers. It's up to how you want to map.
Jackie,
Yeah.
You'd mentioned earlier that you could alter these submodels. So if they alter their submodels and they purchase a sequence, will them altering the submodels impact what the imported sequence does?
Yes, absolutely. Depending on how you alter it, right? If you alter the direction in which this stuff has, then you're going to get a different operation. Like if you change these, let's say that I reverse rows. This is just a simple example. If somebody comes in and gives me a row to where I'm going clockwise, right? So I like to build my stuff to where it goes clockwise, but look at this one. It's going counterclockwise, right? And I go in, I say, oh, I don't like that. I want to change, I want to reverse the rows. Now, when I go in here, I look at it, I'm going clockwise. Okay. How is that going to affect it? Well, whenever the sequencers, their effect comes in, it's just going to run backwards. Now that's an easy example, but let's say that you reverse these rows, reverse the rows, and you change the direction from 13 over here to over here. So we'll do that. Now 13 is over here and 5 is over here. What that does is that's now going to not only reverse the direction, but it's also going to reverse the order in which things run through these. How bad is that? Probably not too bad. Okay. But you just need to know that it will affect it. If you change any numbers, you revert, do anything, sometimes it's necessary to fix stuff. I mean, one of my models that I was working on earlier in here, somebody noticed that the number was off. So we fixed that. It happens. You know, you're going to come across some broken stuff, and you may want to be able to fix it yourself and pass it on to the person who created it so that they can update their stuff. There is a couple other things that I'd like to go over, but is there any other questions before we get too far? All right. So submodels are ultimately a way to create something that you can model to. And one of the reasons why you want to do that, this is absolutely the last thing that I'm going to talk about. Let's take a look at this model again. I'm just going to show you a few of the things that get utilized a lot. Cascading arches, right? These get used. Some of these other things. Look, there's circles in here, petals, big Ys, all rings. We can look. Let's just look at the spinners, for instance, right here. This is all spinners, and the way that he has this done, each one, there are no spacers here. And we talked about doing it. He said, you know, I like the alternating. He said, I like one going fast, one going slow. He said, it gives it more character. So he opted not to do it. So there is purpose for not fixing these things if the character's there. But what I want to talk about is that we have any prop that is used in some of these other sequencers, they use certain effects across certain submodels a lot. And look at this model here. It has the swirl left and it has a swirl right. Well, that's pretty easy to recreate. So let's talk about mapping effects. I want to go back. I want to go to this one right here and let you take a look at it. What we're going to do is we're going to create effects that we can map from other stuff. Let me get rid of this one because I know it was just a mess up. Look what I have here. I have a spiral CW, right here. Take the space here that I have. I can map the effects from that swirl left or swirl right. As a matter of fact, if I wanted to create and rename this swirl left, swirl right, I could. And that would make it simple. So if you had a favorite sequencer that used, say, the PPD wreath, and you wanted to mimic some of the submodels out of that PPD wreath, you could. You can create a submodel that is very close. I've got fireworks long, fireworks short, and the way they work, they're set up very similar to the fireworks in the showstopper spinner. So I can map effects from those models over into this, and not in the great detail that you get out of the other one, but I can still do it. And I can get a lot more bang for my buck just because I have the submodels built to mimic those. And that works for any model, anything. Matter of fact, take a look at this. Here is this one. This is a totally different prop, different shape, different everything. But if I go into the submodels and you take a look, I have spiral CW here, right? You can imagine I can put those effects on this as well. Spiral CW, same way, right? I can do a lot of this. Spokes, these spokes are just like a spinner, right? Now, one thing that I could do with this, but I'm not going to. But what I could do with this is I can create a center pattern here, like I wanted it to spin all the way around and have that space. Let's say that I wanted to start my effect right in the center, just like you would a snowflake or a spinner or whatever else you might want to. And I could count how many rows would it take for me to get to the center of the lollipop here, the Tootsie Roll Pop. But what I would do is I would create rows down at the bottom. So let's just do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Now, what I have 25 blank rows here. I want to at least put some sort of a character in here for the space. I don't want one. So there we go. You can see that this would be time consuming, but it's worth it in the end if it's the effect that you want. Oh, I don't like it. You can pick that way, but I don't particularly like to do that. So let's just pretend that I do that. Now I want it on the other end, to put the same amount on the other end so that the effect will go all the way around in a circle and stay in time with snowflakes and everything else. Well, the way that I would want to do that now is I'd come down here, reverse the rows, and now if I add rows, it adds them to the bottom. And now I've got these spacers on both sides of my submodels. And that would give me a full circle that I need if I wanted to do that. I'm going to cancel this so that does not create a problem. All right, so the purpose, I'm just going to kind of recap. The purposes of building submodels is so that you can have something else to sequence to map to, or to put effects on. It's also so that you can mimic other items and get some of the same things going. So if I wanted a spinner here, spinner here, spinner here, I can do spinner on all of these things. If I wanted an outline on everything, then I create an outline on everything so that I can have effects run across my entire layout that mimic each other and carry some sort of symmetry across the entire display. There's so many reasons to create submodels and try to create submodels that mimic other models so that you can use sequences from other vendors. There's lots of reasons to do that. If you have a sequencer who uses groups, then create groups. You know, that's something that you want to do. You want to stick with that type of thing. Do you want to get rid of the single stuff? It depends. If you're going to use a sequencer as well that uses the single rows, you keep them all. It does, the easiest thing to do is just to close them out. You come over here, double click, and that closes it out. You don't have to worry about seeing it. 24-inch E-flake will close that out. So we've got a bunch of different things here, but the problem in the nutshell is when you open up like the Showstopper spinner and you have all of those submodels here, they take up a lot of room and they can get a little annoying having that many. So if you have some effects in here that you'll never use, delete them, get rid of them. You can always map effects to something else if somebody uses it. They're here as a menu. You don't have to take them. Just get rid of them, clean it up, and utilize it the way you want to. That's about it. I mean, there's a lot that we could still go on, but I think we've spent quite enough time talking about it and probably rotted everybody's brain and even put John to sleep. So,
Jackie,
yes, sir.
those submodels, is there a way to keep them there, but just basically turn them off so you
No.
don't see them? You know, like
No,
when you're
that is something that Michael was talking to someone about. I don't know if they've gotten anywhere. It would be nice to be able to hide them. Like display elements where you just, you hide certain things. When you go into a display elements, you can actually, turn
Right.
off.
That's
That would-
exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
yeah, that would be a nice feature if you could open up the submodels and just click off on those. That would be great. But as of right now, that's not available.
Well, maybe that's since Michael's talking to designers, maybe he can somewhere in the future that can be possible.
It is very possible. If you're a hoarder, like a lot of people are, you don't want to get rid of things,
Right, right.
you want to keep a hold of it. But if you want a cleaner sequence, then you probably do want to get rid of some stuff. There is different ways to clean things up, but I would just say if you know you're not going to use it, if you hadn't used it in a year, get rid of it, type thing. But yeah, that would be nice. It really would.
Know that on a lot of these high density props that when you do check sequence, you'll get a lot of overlap warnings, but they really don't affect anything.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and do that too. You're gonna see all kinds of mess here because this is a
Yeah,
toilet. Yeah.
Because when I first did it, I had a discussion with Jackie.
Yeah, and a lot of people, this drives them nuts, right? So they're gonna see this right here and say, "Oh, this is mess." My groups have this, overlapping nodes. What that means is this is the first one it gets to. It's getting the light, and the rest of them just gonna, you ain't getting nothing. No, you're just gonna have some skips, and that's just part of it. But how much of it is necessary for you to create a group? That's for you to determine. Some skips don't bother me a bit. A lot of skips, then yeah, at that point, I'm going to look at putting them in groups and changing the render styles.
Yeah, Alex.
Oh, you can. I honestly, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can shut part of it off in your preferences.
Oh, well, that's good. That's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah.
But that's up. I guess that's up to the person on what they want to do. Sometimes it's nice to know, but yeah,
Where can you get
that's
these
all
props?
I'm going to go over.
Where can you
Which
get
one?
these
These props?
fantastic props?
Oh, these props are available exclusively. Well, not exclusively, but EFL Designs made them first. And you can also get them in Australia through Troy at ELD. And in some cases, you can speak to Model and get some things. So if you're interested in any of this in Canada, we are worldwide. Any other questions on submodels before we kind of call it quits? Because this has been a lot of information pretty fast, and I'm sure that 90% of the stuff at the very beginning of this is already gone out the memory dump. So if you do have some questions, I will be around for a little while.